In this video, the second in the Gung Character Tiger Boxing series, I demonstrate a fixed stance version of the traditional routine. As to why I'm doing a fixed stance tutorial first, rather than the full traditional routine as originally planned, this is due to a re-evaluation of both versions, which brought me to the conclusion that the fixed stance form is the better one to begin with. Both versions complement each other, but there are a number of advantages to practicing the fixed stance form first. So, what are they? Why practice a fixed stance version of the routine at all? The obvious disadvantage is that you don't get to practice the various stances in the traditional form. But the advantages are many. Let's take a look at just a few of them. First, it's easier to learn, as there is less to learn without the stances. Yet it may still have a useful self-defense function even without the stances, in a cramped environment, for example. Second, almost anybody of any age can learn it, as you can see from the old fellow on the left. It's easier for older people to learn a routine which doesn't include sudden full body moves or low stances. Third, and perhaps most obviously, this routine can be practiced almost anywhere. I'm demonstrating just that by practicing on the cramped balcony of my apartment. If I were facing the windows instead of the camera, I'd have even more room. This is a bigger advantage than it may seem. It doesn't just mean you can practice in a limited space. It means you can still practice when it's raining outside, for example, or when you don't have time to go to the park, which for some may be a bus ride away, or when you just don't have the mood to go to all that trouble. So this version can be practiced not only almost anywhere, but almost any time. All you need is a little bit of space around you and a few minutes free time to practice, which makes it far more convenient than the full traditional form. Another advantage of fixed stance routines is that there are more symmetrical sequences. What I mean by symmetrical sequences is several actions that are practiced on both sides or in both directions. For example, in Gung Character's traditional form, the pointing to the central planes sequence is only done with the left hand pointing. Yet it's certainly the intention that the practitioner learns to carry out the same actions equally well on both sides or in both directions, not only one. One of the advantages of the simpler Japanese and Korean forms is that they contain many more symmetrical sequences, so the practitioner doesn't end up only able to carry out a move effectively on one side. It isn't practical with most Chinese martial arts routines to practice all actions on both sides or in both directions. Chinese martial arts routines tend to be relatively long to begin with. To practice all actions on both sides would make them impractically long to learn. That's why Japanese karate simplified them into their kata. Unfortunately, however, much of the essence of Chinese routines got lost in the process. An answer to this is fixed stance forms. Wing Chun's fixed stance form, Shu Nim Tao, is constituted by symmetrical actions. The reason it can do this without becoming too long and unwieldy is that time is saved by not changing stance. Some martial arts instructors advocate learning every routine symmetrically. This is ideal, but unfortunately way beyond what can be expected from the vast majority of students. The fixed stance version offers an alternative which is within the ability of most students to learn. In fact, the traditional form already has some symmetrical sequences, as you can see here. The fixed stance form retains these, but also adds to them. For example, here is that pointing to the central planes sequence again. The upper body movements are essentially the same as in the traditional routine, and the order of them is more or less the same too. We'll look at the routine move by move in the next video. And as stated earlier, although the breathing techniques are an integral part of Gung Character Tiger Boxing, we'll leave them until the actual movements have been mastered. So the next video is the fixed stance moves, then breathing, then the traditional form, and we'll finish off with a video on supplementary practices.